Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about how to use code to make decisions. Okay, and so this is where we can really start to get into the power of using code, and it's with something called an if statement. So let me give you an example. So let's say we ask for a number as an input. So we'll say number is equal to input, and we'll say enter any number. Alright, and so let's say that we want to decide whether this number is less than 5, or let's say it's less than 100. If it's less than 100 or greater than 100, the tool we use for that is an if statement. Okay, and so if num is less than 5, now what happens is this. You'll notice the next line is automatically tabbed over. And so anything that's tabbed over once basically belongs to this if statement. So we can say print this number is less than 5. Then, once it's done, we can exit the if statement, and it will leave that if and run the rest of the program. So we'll say print this is the rest of the program. Okay, and so basically what's going on is this. When you write a program with Python, it has a flow from top to the bottom. So it's going to start at the top and it's going to work its way down. Okay? In the program we just wrote, it has the same top-down flow, but it gets to a point where it stops and makes a decision. And at that point, if it's 5, it's going to go and carry out a task. And then when that's done, it's going to go back to where that if started, or we'll say it'll go back to right after where that if would end, and then continue on. Okay, now in the case of this program we wrote, if something's equal to 5 or less than 5, then we're going to carry out this part where we say this number is less than 5 and then continue the program. But if that number is greater than 5, then the program is just going to ignore that if and keep moving. Okay, so when we go back to this and run it, you can see that if we put in a 4, okay, so something that we have to do is this. We have to turn it into a string. So right here, let's do that. Okay, so now let's run it. Or not a string, an integer. Apologies. So let's enter the number 4, and it says this number is less than 5, and then it says this is the rest of the program. Okay, so here you have an example of when a number is less than 5. If we run it again and make it 6, that number is greater than 5, and so it skips this if and jumps right to here. Okay, and so this is an if. We have another version of this that's called an if else. And so what happens here is you do something in one case and you do the else in the other case, and you'll notice that the else is tabbed over as well. So anything tabbed over basically belongs to the else. Okay, so in the case that's greater than 5, we'll say this, and we'll do it in a couple lines so you can see that all these tabbed over lines are part of the program, the else. So this, and I'll pause it to finish it. Okay, so we've rewritten the program, so now it says we enter a number, we convert that input into an integer, and we say if number is less than 5, we print this number is less than 5, and if it's not, we're going to say this number is 5 or greater, all on separate lines. And you'll see as soon as we get to the 12th line here, it's not tabbed over anymore, so that won't be included in that else statement. It's part of the rest of the program. So now this program, the way this one works, is a little bit different from the last one in that we still start and go down, but at this point now we have a path. We have the if, and then we have the else. Okay, so it's either going to go this way or that way and then come back to the start. So it will only run one of those statements, whatever's in the if or whatever's in the else, and then when the tabbing ends, it's going to go back to the regular program. So you can go ahead and see it here. When we run it, we enter any number. Let's enter a 4. It says this number is less than 5. So because it was less than 5, it did the if part, and then it didn't do the else because it met this condition, and then it went to the end of the program. We could run it again, and we could say 5, and because it's not less than 5, we could say this number is 5 or greater, and then it went to the rest of the program. You saw it skip that part. And so this is the fundamental building block of programming, is if statements. Okay, we can do a lot of very powerful things using just if statements, but we also have some other more powerful tools that we'll get into as well. Something else to note is that we're only going to use the if else statement when we need to use the else statement. So there are situations where you just need an if, and there's situations where you need an if and an else, and those are the cases where you need the else too. But there could be examples, maybe you just want to know if a number is less than 10. So I want to determine if the number put in is less than 10, then I don't need an else. If I just wanted to do something if it's less than 10, I just have the if less than 10. I don't have something special for it to do if it's greater than 10, so I don't include that. But in the circumstance I wanted to do something else otherwise, that's when I use the else. Only when I want it to choose a different path when it's not that. If I want it just to return to the regular program after it does that, I don't need the else. Okay? Please let me know if you have any questions.